Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 181 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah?
Really well.
Good.
You and I are in the middle of kind of a recording marathon.
We are.
We just got done recording our TCAT episode for this Sunday, which will be out at the same time this one's out. It's the second and final episode of the Eileen Wuornos story. I think it's good. I think people will like it. There's a lot of clips of Eileen, Ty, and then we kind of, delve into the trial in depth, but also get into, Eileen's kind of erratic behavior as the years went on leading up to her execution and all of that.
Definitely worth a listen.
And we have a really good unsolved episode for everybody on tap. But before we get into it, we have some new supporter shout outs. Let's give those. We had Kirsty J.
Hey, Kirsty.
Phoenix Ray.
What's going on, Phoenix?
Jay Johnston.
Hey, thanks, Jay.
Karen Winterquist.
What's going on, Winterquist?
April Harmon.
Hey, April.
Brandon Madden.
Hey, thanks, Brandon.
Jennifer Traficante.
Ooh, Traficante.
Or Traficante.
Sounds like a good coffee.
Does it?
Yeah.
Sounds like a mob family to me. I'm just going to throw that out
say
there.
Anything more than.
Sean McNutt.
Hey, McNutt.
I shouldn't say that. I don't mean Jennifer's in the mob. That's just a...
Hey, if I don't see you next time I come here, I know why.
If I get something in the mail with newspaper with a fish wrapped in it,
yeah,
I'm calling you right away.
Yeah.
We had Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
Cindy Dahlberg.
Hey, Cindy.
Monster Matt.
What's going on, MM?
Courtney Hicks.
Hey, thanks, Courtney.
Karen Kaive.
Well,
did I say that as a question? It could be.
You did.
Quave, Quav, Kaive.
I'm going to go with Quav.
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Mary White.
Hey, Mary.
Kristen Inglesby.
What's going on, Inglesby?
Amy Ryersgard.
Well, Ryersgard.
Nina Walters.
Hey, thanks, Nina.
Sarah Seppi.
Hey, Seppi.
Sherry Hester.
What's going on, Sherry?
Angela Franklin.
Well, thank you, Angela.
Susanna.
Hey, old Susanna.
Melissa Bayless.
Hey.
I'm really sure she appreciated that.
I meant old, like old.
Oh, you always mean the old.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hey, thanks, Melissa.
Madison B.
What's going on, Madison?
And last but not least, Mandy Annis.
Well, Mandy.
And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Andrew Eastwood.
Well, thank you, Mr. Eastwood.
So we appreciate all the Patreon support, the new support, the continued support. It helps us a lot.
Big time.
Right now we're struggling with advertising, as are a lot of podcasts. I think everybody's just trying to stay afloat as we work through 2020, the pandemic.
Right.
When are advertisers going to kind of come back and start to put some money into podcasts again?
Maybe soon.
Because we kind of need that to keep going.
It helps.
We had some PayPal donations. We had Allison Burks.
Hey, Allison.
Shannon McIntyre.
What's going on, Shannon?
Tammy Christie.
Hey, thanks, Tammy.
And Tracy Collier.
Oh, thanks, Tracy.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am.
In this episode, we're discussing the disappearances and murders of two young teenage girls. Now, one of these cases is solved, but it has a twist, and that twist involves the unsolved case, so that's why we're bringing it in. This all begins in Kingston, Massachusetts in 1986, which at the time had a population of less than 9,500 people.
So not a very big town at all.
Not huge. On October 1st, 1986, 15-year-old Tracy Gilpin, a freshman at Silver Lake Regional High School, decided to attend a friend's party that evening after she finished babysitting. When her babysitting gig was over, Tracy walked 2 blocks to the house where the party was located. This neighborhood was known as the Rocky Nook. I don't know why. Thought it was interesting.
Yeah. But I think it was that type of neighborhood where everybody knew everybody that lived in that neighborhood, right? You're from the Rocky Nook. Everybody knew that's where you were from. You belonged there. You weren't an outsider. It was just one of those type of neighborhoods. Like you probably grew up in a neighborhood like that.
Yeah, I would say so. I grew up in a pretty small town too. Everybody kind of knew everybody. The one thing I will say is that, if somebody was walking around, it wasn't all that hard to figure out that they didn't belong.
Right.
So they either better be some type of meter reader, selling Reader's Digest or something like that, or somebody's getting the cops called on them because everybody knew everybody.
Or that Britannia Encyclopedia salesperson.
Or Encyclopedia Britannica.
Or that too.
Either way.
Well, one was cheaper than the other.
You got the Britannica.
Obviously.
Sometime around 10:30 p.m. that evening, Tracy, who smoked, left the party because she needed more cigarettes. So she walked to the convenience store, which was called Cumberland Farms.
It's a fairly large convenience store chain up and down the East Coast.
So this particular Cumberland Farms was on Howlands Lane, and it was about a 30-minute walk for Tracy. Pretty good distance away.
For a pack of smokes.
Yeah, but hey, if you're a smoker and you need a pack of smokes, you're going to walk that 30 minutes.
You're going to get them. You're going to have to get them.
So once she went to the convenience store, she got her cigarettes, Tracy was ready to return to the party. So she called her friend, and it was actually the friend that was having the party.
Yeah.
For a ride back. Her friend told her she couldn't leave, which I get that. Most people who are having a party don't want to leave, drive, get you, and then come back.
Yeah, I've got to be here at my house, man. I got to keep my eyes on things.
By the time I get back, the whole place is on fire.
Yeah. Frank the Tank has taken over.
Exactly. So this friend told her that she needed to either walk back or catch a ride. Now, the clerk at the convenience store saw Tracy on the phone and then saw her walking away around 11:20 p.m. But Gibbs, that was the last time anyone saw Tracy Gilpin alive.
Yeah.
Tracy didn't make it home that night. But, and this is something that you and I have noticed quite a bit in some of these unsolved episodes, Tracy was known to stay over at friends' houses sometimes. So her family wasn't all that concerned until the following morning. And then when she didn't come home by early afternoon of the next day, they were very concerned. Her parents, Richard and Kathy Gilpin, they called the local authorities to come out and make a report. But the police told the Gilpins to give it a few days because they had learned that Tracy had run away from home in the past.
Yeah.
So I think they felt as though she would return within a day or two, as she had on previous occasions when she had run off.
And we've heard that in previous episodes as well, right?
We have.
The police were a little...
I say laissez-faire, but...
Well, that's a good word to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1986.
Right.
And a little different time. I think, 70s, 80s, maybe even into the 90s. I don't know when it really started to change.
Right.
But there did seem to be a little bit of a wait and see attitude on the part of some police departments when it came to kids that didn't come home.
Yeah. Especially if they had a track record of.
Yes, of maybe running away or staying out or whatever it is. Now, it's something that I think you and I struggle with, having kids that are the ages that they are. That wouldn't fly with me. Yeah. Even if it was, 10 years ago, let's say my daughter was, 9, 10, whatever she would have been.
Right.
And a police officer said, yeah, she'll turn up. No, get the National Guard.
Yeah.
Call John Rambo. I don't care who you got to get.
I want them all out there.
Yes.
Right now.
I want all the action figures. Get Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Get him on the phone now.
Get Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. Where's the Rock at?
But it's just a different, I don't even know what the word is. Nowadays, anything having to do with the missing child is taken very seriously.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The sense of urgency is there today.
Yes. On October 7th, the police decided to consider Tracy missing, and they began to search for the missing teenager. Authorities combed the area around the convenience store and the house where the party was held. They also searched the path that Tracy would have taken to get home. They placed flyers throughout the community, but really, Gibbs, they had no luck finding any leads to work from.
Yeah, just nothing good came from all that work, all that effort, and just no leads.
Also something that we see quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of work on the part of families and police and volunteers and then just for nothing to kind of spark the next direction. That has to be very disheartening.
And you wonder, could it have been because they waited, basically a week?
It's always the question.
Before jumping in.
It's always the question. If you get that flyer out day of,
right,
at the very latest the next day, does somebody remember seeing that person? And, a week goes by, I can't remember hardly anything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are like that. The memory fades pretty quickly for some people. Around October 21st, the authorities received a call from a local woman who had been walking her dog through Miles Standish State Park in Plymouth, Mass. She was collecting recyclable bottles. While she was looking for these bottles at the front entrance to the state park on Long Pond Road, the woman stumbled upon a shallow grave that was barely covered with some dirt and leaves. She contacted the police immediately, and once they got on site, they very quickly determined the victim was 15-year-old Tracy Gilpin of Kingston. And they made that identification quickly because Tracy was wearing a silver and black bracelet that her mother recognized as being hers. It had been given to her by her best friend. Authorities later followed up with a positive identification by using dental records. Now, the site where Tracy was found was about 11 miles from where she was last seen. So you talk about tough. Your daughter's missing. Police find a body. On the body is a bracelet that right away belongs to your daughter. I mean, right then and there, your heart is broken. Your world is shattered.
Oh, man, your heart is below your stomach at that point.
Upon examination of the body, the authorities reported she had rope marks around her neck, which indicated strangulation. But the cause of death was determined to be a massive skull fracture that came from a 73-pound rock that had crushed her head. The autopsy concluded that she had been dead for a couple of weeks. The police in the community were outraged by the brutality of this murder, especially of a young teenage girl.
Well, that's a brutal crime, period, but a 73-pound rock?
Well, I think we have to discuss that. I thought that was a typo. I'll be real honest with you, because the first thing that ran through my head was, okay, how many people can lift a 73-pound rock? You're limiting your pool of potential killers.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, both you and I could lift it.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying it's 1%, but
right. No, it's not an easy task.
No,
that's dead weight.
A 73-pound rock.
Yeah.
I can't even picture what that looks like, but it's a pretty big rock.
Right. And this was before CrossFit came into play.
Yeah.
So,
Right. It's like that boulder that you got to lift up on that big peg or something. But that's the first thing that went through my head was kind of, okay, well, we're probably now excluding certain people because physically they just would not have the strength to lift this 73-pound rock.
Yeah, to get it off the ground, to turn around and high enough to drop it on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to take some good strength for
Yeah.
sure.
So I think you're limiting people maybe by age.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to have probably a 10, 11-year-old that can lift a 73-pound rock.
If you're going to have any teenager lifting that,
Well, 17, 18
sure,
maybe.
Yeah.
But, a lower teen,
right.
lower age teen, people of a certain higher age would most likely have trouble lifting that rock.
Right.
There's a lot of females that could probably do it, but there's a lot that probably couldn't. And then even males, you got, bad backs, broken arms. All those things are running through my head that you are excluding certain people based on whether or not they would have the ability to lift that rock.
Yeah, definitely limits the pool.
Yes. The police collected evidence at the site and allowed the family to bury Tracy the following Monday, October 27th, at the St. Joseph Cemetery in Kingston. Investigators questioned everyone at the party. They questioned friends, they questioned the store clerk, even family. They were attempting to try to find a lead. They needed one. They had nothing. And they got a few leads. Some of them took them to nearby towns. Some of the leads took them across the country. The problem is, and this happens in almost every unsolved case, you have some leads, sometimes a few, sometimes a lot, but a lot of times they just don't lead anywhere.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what happened in the case of Tracy Gilpin's murder. And her case went cold for several years.
Which is going to be disappointing to the family, the community, and the police.
The only person that would be happy that the case goes cold is the killer or killers.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it. You're right.
Everybody else is upset. They're dismayed. They're despondent. Tracy's sister, who at the time of Tracy's death was 16 years old, it was a huge, enormous impact on her life, as it would be for any of us. Anytime a family member is murdered in such a brutal fashion. But this incident, the murder of her sister, motivated Carrie Gilpin to take a law enforcement career path. And eventually she reached the position of colonel of the Massachusetts State Police, which is like the top ranking position.
Yeah. Can't go any higher than that.
She just retired in November of 2019 after running the state police for a number of years. Now, we'll talk more about Carrie later in this episode. So I mentioned it, Gibbs. Tracy's case had gone cold. And then 4 years later, on Saturday, September 15th, another teen went missing. 13-year-old Melissa Benoit, an 8th grader at Sacred Heart School, and her 10-year-old sister, Erica, who was in the 6th grade. They went next door to watch TV at the neighbor's house. So they went over to the house of the Varakis family early that afternoon. The girls liked to stay busy because they had lost their dad to a heart attack the year before. His death was very traumatic for both of them and everyone in the family. Around 2:30 p.m., Melissa got up and told her sister and friends that she was leaving to go home. But first, she was going to visit her dad's gravesite. The gravesite happened to be in a cemetery that was behind the girls' house in their subdivision. It was called Evergreen Cemetery. All they had to do was walk a short path at the back of their lot through a small pine wooded area to get to his grave. Erica, Melissa's little sister, left the neighbor's house about 20 minutes after Melissa. She wanted to check on her sister, but Erica couldn't locate her at the cemetery or back at their home. In those 20 minutes, Melissa had gone missing.
Just that quick.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, I would say in almost every case, the period of time in which somebody is taken, if that's what happens, it's very quick.
Yeah.
Now, it may be a long period of time since somebody's last seen them or whatever, but the actual act of somebody being kidnapped or taken, I have to imagine that those types of things happen very quickly because perpetrators don't want to be seen. They don't want to take the chance that somebody's going to spot them. So they try to do things as quickly as possible.
Right.
Melissa's mother, Diane, called police to report her missing. And again, they told her that if she didn't come home by morning, they would move forward with a missing persons report. Diane was a social worker with the welfare department for the state, and she knew right away something was wrong. Something had happened to her daughter, but she was kind of powerless. She had to wait.
I think most parents know when something has happened, right? You get that chill, you get that gut feeling.
Yeah, I think you get a gut feeling, but it's also based on your child's history. You know them. You know what they do, what they don't do. They would call. They wouldn't stay out past a certain time. I think all of that factors in. But what an agonizing night, right? Your daughter's missing. You've called the police. You've done what you needed to do.
Right.
There's nothing else you can do. Now, you can go out searching.
Sure.
But you're going to have to wait until the next morning for the cavalry to come and help you. It's going to be a long night.
It is going to be a long night. And that'd be tough to even leave because what if the phone rings?
That's the thing. Most people don't want to because you want to be sitting by that phone. You want to be sitting by that door in case they call, they walk in.
And she didn't have her husband help her because he passed away just the year before, and she's probably still dealing with that too, just like the girls were.
Sure. But the next morning, September 16th, when Melissa had not returned home, the police, the fire department, county sheriffs, along with about 150 residents, helped search the area for any signs of Melissa. The police put out an APB for her, reporting that she was last seen wearing a pink t-shirt, floral shorts, and was barefoot. She was 5'3", 125 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes.
And her family was pretty frustrated and concerned because Melissa had made this trip through the small wooded area at least 3 or 4 times a week for the past year.
And I get that frustration. This was not a situation where, she was walking 15 minutes down the road, at night to go to an area that was dangerous.
Right.
It's not that situation.
No.
You're essentially in your backyard almost. The path is.
Yeah.
And, making it 3 to 4 times a week. Her mother had to have gotten to a pretty good comfort level.
I would think so.
That probably both kids could make that, hopefully together, but they could make that whenever they wanted to and go visit their dad's grave and really not have to worry about it.
I mean, I still think it's creepy that there's a cemetery in a neighborhood like that, but I know that's kind of common because every time I come to see you, I always look over my shoulder because that cemetery across the road.
There is a cemetery literally across the subdivision from my house that sits in between 2 other houses.
Yeah.
But it's so old that when they built the subdivision, I guess it was part of the deal. They couldn't move it or it's somewhat strange. It has a poltergeist type vibe to it.
It has a huge poltergeist vibe to it. Yeah.
It may seriously affect my resale. I don't know.
I think I hear noises sometimes, but that's when I get in my car and get out of here pretty quickly.
Authorities had searched in the woods off Route 106, the sand pits off Route 80, the Johns River, behind the local junkyard, and around the police station, which was just up from Melissa's house. Authorities posted over 2,000 posters all around town, and investigators questioned all 15 neighbors that surrounded the Evergreen Cemetery. As you can imagine, the community was in uproar. Gibbs, who could have taken this 13-year-old girl just down the street from the police department and during the day in plain sight?
Well, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, right?
It's a lot of causes panic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people's kids are out during the day. And if you're not safe during the day, just down the street from the police department, where are you safe?
What does that tell you? Yeah.
And I think to add on top of that, the community really still had not gotten over the unsolved murder of Tracy Gilpin that occurred 4 years earlier.
Yeah, at that time, it was still sitting there unsolved. No activity going on with it.
The police had several psychics that came forward with clues. One was a man named Richard Phillips, who had successfully found a body a few years earlier for the local county sheriff. They searched where he told them to search, but Melissa was not found. On September 21st, Melissa's mother made a statement at a local press conference, asking people to come forward with any information about her daughter. And that same evening, Melissa's case aired on America's Most Wanted.
Which you would hope would generate some type of lead.
Yeah, because you really, at that point in time, what better communication vehicle could you have asked for?
Oh, yeah.
America's Most Wanted was huge. A lot of people watched that show. It helped solve quite a few crimes and missing persons cases. That was a coup. If you had a family member who was missing or something like that, and you were able to get that segment aired on America's Most Wanted, that was a big deal.
It was huge.
And it was after that the FBI joined the investigation. FBI investigators went back to each of the homeowners surrounding the Evergreen Cemetery and asked them to voluntarily take a polygraph test. One neighbor who was a bookkeeper for a lumber yard, as well as a local church deacon and a Bible school teacher, failed the test. He told investigators he tried to lie because he'd had fantasies about molesting little girls in the past. He also told agents that he often drove around observing young girls while masturbating in his car.
All right. This is wrong on every level, but here's another person that's in a position of power at one of his jobs. That drives me crazy. You know, he's around little kids teaching them, and this is how he thinks, and these are the thoughts that he has. It's alarming.
It is alarming, and I'm going to ask a question that might be kind of polarizing. My question is that why he took the job as a Bible school teacher, a Sunday school teacher, or whatever,
right,
whatever you call it? It may not have even been a paying job, but did he take it because that put him around young children? Yeah. Who obviously, you know, he was attracted to young children. It's a scary thought, a very scary thought.
I'm going to say, yeah, I think he did for the ease of access.
Because I do think there have been a lot of predators over the years, especially those who, you know, were into young children, who tried to get into those positions. You think about a Cub Scout leader, things like that,
right?
Where you know, maybe a youth soccer coach.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing out things. Now, I'm not putting down people that do that because I coached my kids in soccer.
Yeah, same here. Yeah,
but that's a scary thought because you're putting some level of trust right into these people.
I mean, he's a church deacon. He's teaching the Bible. If he believes what he's teaching, then he knows what he's thinking and doing is wrong. Don't do it, or excuse yourself from the access that you do have.
So this man's name was Henry Meinholz. He was 52 years old and married and lived right next door to the Benoit family.
Yeah, this is when you think you know your neighbors, you know? Because back then, you definitely had more interaction with your neighbors.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah. Unlike today, where you really don't have that.
I don't have any, but I'm not a good case study.
No, you would not be a good case study. But I just don't think people are that open with their neighbors as they used to be.
Yeah, and I also don't think they're as trusting.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day, people would give their neighbors their keys.
Yeah.
In case they got locked out or to get their mail while they were on vacation. A lot of people don't do that anymore.
No.
Because the world we live in, it just seems like a less trusting world. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm jaded.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I think a lot of people feel that way. A lot more people than would have back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I remember one year I moved to a new place, man, and they knocked on my door. It was like handing me like a tray of stuff. And I was taken back. Like, why are you over here?
Like welcoming you to the neighborhood?
Yeah, but I was more like, why are you? You know,
What's your angle, man?
Yeah, I was like, they wanted to come in. I wasn't going to let them come. Why am I letting you come in? I don't know who you are. So, and I don't even like the stuff that you brought over. No, you know me. I would have taken it.
Yeah, you're too nice.
Yeah.
But all this information, Gibbs, it really piqued the interest of the FBI, and they acted very quickly to get a warrant to search Meinholz's house. On September 26th, during the search of his basement, they discovered Melissa Benoit's partially nude body. She was wearing only her pink shirt, and her body was found under a pile of dirt and coal. During the interview with investigators, after her body was found, Meinholz claimed that he heard voices in his head telling him that he needed to rape and kill this little girl. He told the police that the voices taunted him, made him feel like he was less than a man if he didn't do what they told him to do. So he raped and murdered Melissa, and afterwards said he felt like a man.
Oh, that's good. So that's what made him feel like a man, taking advantage and doing that to a 13-year-old girl.
So I don't know, Gibbs. To me, this is either a man with a very serious mental illness, saying that he's hearing voices in his head, they're telling him to do things, or this is a Son of Sam situation.
Yeah.
Where maybe he's saying this, but it didn't really happen, and trying to justify his actions by, saying voices told him to do it.
Now that he's caught.
Well, and that's the big thing, right? Nobody ever just walks into the police station and says, hey, I'm hearing voices. They're telling me to do this before they actually do it.
Right.
As far as I know. I mean, maybe it happens, but
it's not like that Tom Cruise movie where they see the crime before it happens.
Minority Report. Love that movie.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I know it is. I just told you.
Well, you sure did.
But sick puppy, right? This guy's a sick individual.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. He could be mentally ill, but whether he is or not, what he did is extremely disturbing and sick. So he confessed to the FBI and other investigators. He also told them that 10 years earlier, he had sexually assaulted a teenager at knife point because of these voices in his head. But he didn't stop there. He told them he had been molesting little girls for the last 30 years and that he did it because he too was molested as a child. And when they investigated his past, they found that he did have a history of sexual assaults on his record. He was also a prime suspect in the sexual assault of one of his own daughters back in 1979, but he was never arrested. So my assumption, Gibbs, is they just never could get enough evidence to arrest and charge him with that crime.
Yeah.
But based on everything he did, it's hard not to think that he probably was involved.
I think he probably was, yeah.
Melissa's autopsy showed that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Her body was heavily bruised, and it appeared she had been bound around her hands and body with rope. Days after the discovery of Melissa's body, she was laid to rest. Her family and about 150 friends attended a service at the First Parish Unitarian Church. The church was covered with pink ribbons, inside and out.
Which happened to be her favorite color.
And it was reported, Gibbs, that her mother couldn't even speak to anyone during the ceremony. I get that.
Yeah. Don't know how you could.
Your daughter's missing. There's panic. You're distraught over that.
Right.
But then you find out that she was murdered. You find out the way that she was murdered and who the prime suspect is. That's a lot. It's a lot to handle. The fact that this guy lived next door to you, it adds an element to it. I would think.
Makes you think about everything you've ever done.
Question yourself, maybe, in a way.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a stranger who pulled your child off the street as they were walking to school, which is horrible in itself.
Right.
This is a person that maybe you knew on some level, however casual it might have been.
Well, from what I understand, he lived next door since 1978 to them. So that's a good amount of time.
They probably traded tools. They probably talked over the fence.
Well, him being, somebody at the church, I'm assuming there was a little bit of trust factor there too, right? I mean, you would think, oh, they're over at Henry's place or whatever. You probably didn't have that big of concern because Henry was a deacon at a church.
Meinholz was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. He pleaded not guilty at his arraignment, and the judge ordered him to complete psychiatric testing before they moved forward with the trial.
That's a good call on the judge.
Based on everything we know about him, I would say it's a very good call.
Let's get this out of the way first.
The trial began in mid-September of 1991, a year after Melissa's murder. Henry Meinholz continued with an insanity defense, and he blamed the sexual assault and murder on the voices in his head, as well as saying that he had an out-of-body experience.
Oh, the old out-of-body experience thing, huh?
He also told the jury that Melissa was a willing participant in the sexual assault.
Yeah, now I know that ticks me off, and I know it really gets you frustrated.
Yeah, because I imagine myself leaping from the courthouse seat
right,
and trying to get to this guy.
Yeah.
It's bad enough that you killed my daughter.
Yeah.
Now you're going to try to make the claim that she was a willing participant
right
in the sexual assault. No,
Yeah.
no. But the jury didn't believe anything that he had to say. They didn't believe his defense. And as the judge handed down his verdict, he gave Meinholz a piece of his mind.
I love this.
The Superior Court Judge, Cortland Matter, said, "Your despicable efforts to add a stigma on the memory of this child only adds to the enormity of your crime." And again, he's specifically referring there to the fact that he said she was a willing participant.
Yeah.
The judge went on to say, "It is said that my predecessors in colonial times had gallows erected on the green in front of this courthouse and summarily sent defendants convicted, as you have been, to be hanged. I truly regret that option is not open to me in this case." He's saying, if I could,
Yeah.
I would literally march you out front
Right now.
and see you swing.
Yeah.
That is exactly what he's saying.
Yeah. He didn't hold it back, did he?
No, he really didn't. But I think it shows you how everybody connected with this case is outraged.
Yeah.
It shows the level of outrage.
Sure.
I mean, if the judge is saying that,
Right.
just imagine what the parents and family and, the outrage that they had. The judge then sentenced him to life in prison without parole. So the case of Melissa Benoit's disappearance and murder was solved. Meinholz later died in prison in 2000, but the murder of Tracy Gilpin remained a cold case until 2018. It was in early March of that year, during some cold case interviews in Tracy's abduction and murder, that investigators received a lead that a man named Michael Hand may have witnessed her kidnapping and murder. In 2018, Hand was living in North Carolina. So investigators traveled there to interview him about Tracy Gilpin. They were there a couple of days interviewing him. And as a result, the investigators were able to get some pretty good information out of Hand. They already knew he lived in Kingston in 1986, and he was 29 years old at the time. And I guess during the interviews, he made some statements, Gibbs, that actually put him in the park at the time of Tracy's death.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the biggest thing he said. At one point, he told investigators that he picked up a large rock and dropped it on Tracy Gilpin's head.
That's a big statement to make. I'm guessing the investigators' eyes probably were as wide as you can get them.
Well, he even went on to identify the actual rock from like a photo lineup of rocks, I'm assuming. Hand said that he knew Tracy from the neighborhood. He stated that he had a party at his house that same night and that some of the kids from the other party stopped by to check it out.
Which is strange to me. A 29-year-old guy having a party. I get that. But allowing these teenage kids to come on over?
Yeah, that does seem a little strange.
Yeah, a little weird.
But maybe he had beer. They weren't able to get beer.
Yeah.
You think back to when you were 17 years old or 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And somebody said, hey, I got some beer.
I guess. I don't
Maybe.
know. A little creepy.
I mean, I had a fake ID, so I didn't worry about it.
Yeah. I just took it out of the fridge.
But investigators felt good, right, about this suspect, Michael Hand. Obviously, he had just implicated himself in Tracy's murder, but then he added a twist to his story about that night. He said it was actually Henry Meinholz who had abducted Tracy Gilpin. He said he recalled seeing Tracy getting into Meinholz's vehicle and driving off. And then later he said he saw Henry by the park with a tarp and a shovel, and that's how he got involved. And I think, Gibbs, for you and I, this is where the details get a little fuzzy, how Hand and Meinholz combine or get together and are both involved in the murder of Tracy Gilpin. Hand has already implicated himself. Now he's trying to implicate Meinholz as well.
Right.
He said he dropped the rock on Tracy's head. Meinholz has a tarp and shovel. So obviously they're interacting somehow in a joint capacity. We just don't have all those details.
Right. And you got to wonder, here it is so many years later. Clearly he's heard about the story and the conviction and the death.
I was going to say, probably knows that this guy's dead.
Yeah. And so, it's not hard for him to fabricate anything if it takes the heat off of him, if he thinks it helps take the heat off of him. But if that's the case, why would you even say, yeah, I knew her and yeah, I picked a rock up.
Right. That's the part that's got me confused, because you've already basically said you murdered this girl.
Yeah. Why not just open up with the fact that, I think that I saw that Henry Meinholz guy pick her up that night and leave it at that.
I think the big problem with this part of the story is that there was never a trace of Meinholz's DNA on Tracy or, at the murder site. And then you have the issue of the fact that at the point this is all coming out, he'd been dead for 18 years.
Yeah.
You can't ask him any questions.
Yeah, he can't say yay or nay. What I did find interesting about this Hand guy, when you research this case, all his neighbors down in North Carolina said this guy was a piece of work. He wore his pistol on his hip. If you got anywhere near his house, doesn't matter if you were a kid, a elderly person, he would come out and get aggressive with you, yell at you. He was never happy about anything. And he made all his neighbors feel very uncomfortable living near him. And they all basically said they were not surprised when they heard about his arrest, because they've all felt like something was off with him.
On May 11th, 2018, Michael Hand was arrested and charged with the abduction, attempted sexual assault, and murder of 15-year-old Tracy Gilpin. Hand decided not to fight extradition and agreed to return to Massachusetts for his trial. He was arraigned on March 14th, and then on May 22nd, the grand jury officially indicted him while he was present. On June 4th, the Massachusetts Superior Court had to arraign him again on kidnapping charges, intent to sexually assault, and murder. Michael Hand pleaded not guilty. The district attorney and investigators did not yet have DNA evidence linking Hand to the murder, but felt that his statements to investigators would be enough for a conviction.
It was pretty powerful statements.
He confessed. He admitted doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. a defense attorney could attempt to try to have it thrown out, could argue it.
People confess to things they didn't do. You'd like to have the evidence to really corroborate the confession.
Yeah.
The case went quiet, though, after June of 2018, at least in the media. There were a few delays in future hearings, but outside of that, there really wasn't any more information. So as far as we know, this is kind of in flux. It's still ongoing.
Right.
And we'll have to keep an eye on it. So because of that, technically, Tracy Gilpin's case is still unsolved. But you'd have to say, Gibbs, that it certainly looks promising that police have her killer.
Yeah.
I mean, he confessed to doing it.
Right.
We're just going to have to wait and see if they have enough to convict him.
Yeah.
And how long that's going to take. And obviously the pandemic and COVID and all of that has thrown cases kind of pushed everything back.
It's changed out the whole, the way the courts operate currently.
Now, earlier on, we talked about Carrie Gilpin ending up as the top official for the Massachusetts State Police, retired in November of 2019. When you research this case, you see that she was kept informed about what was going on with Michael Hand and regarding the murder of her sister, but she distanced herself from the investigation because she didn't want to jeopardize the hard work and the potential conviction.
Yeah, she's really smart about that. So she has to feel somewhat relieved that they finally have someone in custody for her sister's murder.
Yeah, after a long number of years. At the same time, she's probably very apprehensive, right? Is this the right guy?
Yeah.
And are they going to get the evidence they need to get a conviction? I don't think she's going to rest until then. I mean, yeah, it's great that they've charged somebody with it.
Right.
But until that conviction happens and that person's, put away, I think she's not going to be able to rest. But that's it, Gibbs, for the case of Tracy Gilpin and Melissa Benoit as well, right? Two very sad cases, two monsters. These guys were monsters.
They really are.
Involved.
Yeah.
Now, we're saying that assuming that Michael Hand is guilty, which you really shouldn't do.
Yeah.
So I'll rephrase it. Meinhold's monster for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And if Hand turns out to be Tracy's killer and did what he said he did, he's a monster as well.
Yep, I agree.
We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Always like hearing those.
Hi, this is Anna calling from Portland, Oregon, and I just actually got done listening to the Gannon Stotch case on the Unsolved, and I found it really interesting because I don't know if you've heard about it, but there is actually an Oregon case, specifically Portland, Oregon, about a boy who went missing. I want to say it was about 9 or 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit less than that, Kyron Horman, who had really similar situation. Where the stepmother was questioned about maybe being involved, and she was the last person who had seen him, and he just kind of up and disappeared. And unfortunately, still nothing has been really discovered in this case today. But it was just really interesting because they found a lot of similarities between the two cases. So I don't know if you know anything about it, but maybe look into that one because it is definitely a good one that you can maybe cover on Unsolved. But just want to say that, obviously thinking of you guys during COVID time, and we have the wildfires here obviously going on, just a little bit of ways from me, but thankfully I'm not in the area. But just obviously hope you guys and all the listeners as well stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Thanks so much.
Well, hey, first, we're glad you're safe.
Yeah. Well, and you and I talked about the wildfires on our weekly Patreon episode.
And as far as that case, we've started researching that. And it's been kind of ongoing.
Yeah.
It's just so much detail out there.
There is. And it's actually a fairly well-known case.
Yeah.
Pretty highly publicized. So, yeah, I mean, we've definitely heard of it. We've had it on the list.
Yeah.
We've actually been planning to do it. We just want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Mike. Hi, Gibby. It's Lisa from Ontario. And I just got done listening to TCAT Unsolved. And at the end, you were saying about how much he's worried about your moms and everything. And I completely understand that. And my husband's family had a big scare with their grandma. She was 82, I think it was. And she lived on her own, very vibrant woman. She biked and everything. And one night, a young fella that was impaired by drugs broke into her bathroom window. She heard him in the middle of the night, got up, and he went to go after her. She chased him into her basement, said she was going to call the cop, and then she chased him out of the basement, out her front door. Don't mess with that woman. Sometimes those older women can really surprise you. But, yeah, they caught the guy and he was arrested. And, yeah, so you just can never know. Sometimes those older people can surprise you. Anyways, hope you are staying safe and keep your own time ticking.
So obviously this is in reference to me saying, something about most women in their 80s or something wouldn't be able to,
right,
fend off a much younger guy. Got so many emails with stories of like 80-year-old women just beating the what out of people that tried to mess with them.
Yeah.
So
well, that's good.
It is good.
Yeah,
it is good. Now, one of them was an award-winning female bodybuilder.
Oh,
so
yeah,
she was 82 years old though.
That's impressive.
Up in Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
Beat this guy so badly that they had to take him to the hospital.
That's great. I love it.
Literally kicked his ass, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike Gibson and Mike Ferguson. Gibby and Fergie, how you doing? My name's Josh Schwartz. I was calling today. It's September 13th, my birthday. I'm 34 years old, and I've been listening to you guys for quite a few years. I'm actually caught up on True Crime All the Time and True Crime All the Time Unsolved. I recently joined Patreon about a week or two ago, and I just wanted to give a shout-out to you. I'm Team Gibby and Team Fergie. I love you both. You guys make me laugh. Your little banter, back and forth is great. Anyway, I just thought I'd give you a call and give you guys a shout out. I love the episodes and keep them coming. And as always, keep your own time ticking.
Oh, we love that. So first of all, happy belated birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And may the Schwartz be with you.
See, Fergie's funny, man. He's a funny guy. You're a funny guy.
All right, everyone. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.